Okay, in this video, I'm going to be doing a breakdown on the 1996 National League champion Atlanta Braves. This is the only one of the great Brave teams from the 1990s that I actually have. I don't have any complete sets from the 1990s, and the 1996 Braves were part of that Strat-O-Matic special series set that they released for the 1990 teams. And the Braves were represented by their 1996 squad. So let's get into how this team breaks down. First, let's get started with the offense. And as always, I'll get started with the top of the order. Pretty much 1-2 set in stone was Grissom and Lemke, and you see their on base chances right there. All those numbers are pretty solid. Now let's take a look at the 3-4 hitters. Again, this was pretty much set in stone as well. Chipper Jones third, Fred McGriff cleanup, and you see their hits with multiple base advancement. Those numbers don't necessarily pop out at you as being great, but I would categorize them as being very solid. And what I like about this 3-4 combo is obviously Chipper Jones was a switch hitter. Fred McGriff was a lefty who is not impacted adversely by facing left-handed pitching. So that's a pretty solid 3-4 combo right there. Now, I'm going to show you Ryan Klesko's numbers, his hits with multiple base advancement. Now, Klesko is listed as a everyday player, everyday left field, hitting farther down in the lineup against left-handed pitching. But I could tell you, whenever I do play with the 1996 Braves, I tend to put them on the bench. But let me go off of the Strat-O-Matic book saying Ryan Klesko was the everyday left fielder. You see his hits there with multiple base advancement, and that's just a number that you don't want against left-handed pitching right there. So the 7 out of 33 against right-handers is a pretty solid number for a guy who would hit, let's say, fifth or sixth against righties. But to me, that 3 out of 33 number is, you just can't carry that in your lineup from one of your corner outfielders who you usually rely on to drive in runs. The next player I'm going to break down is Jermaine Dye. I'm going to show you his numbers right there, multiple base advance hits. You see those numbers are pretty solid. Now, David Justice that year only had 130 at bats. You see his numbers right there. And next, I'm going to break down the catcher, Javi Lopez, and you could see his runner advance numbers check out very well for a guy who was anywhere from sixth to seventh in the lineup, basically. So those are pretty solid numbers. I'm going to show you one more player here, just because this is going to tie into to some of my ratings that I'm going to share with you. But the everyday shortstop, Rafael Belliard, I'm going to show you his on base chances, and you could see that that is a really tough bat to carry in a lineup, especially when if you happen to be playing a series and it's National League on National League and Belliard's got to hit eighth while the pitcher hits ninth, that could be a little tough to take. So let me break down the numbers I got for the 1996 Braves offense. As far as on base percentage, I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. Middle of the order, I gave him a very solid 4 out of 5. And the righty lefty mix and depth in the lineup would have probably been a 5 out of 5, considering the fact, like I spoke on before, when I play with the 96 Braves, I find this team to have a lot of versatility on it, because if you don't want to play Klesko and left, you can move some guys around and put him on the bench against lefties. However, if I take into account that Ryan Klesko is the everyday left fielder, and I really don't like his card against lefties, and what I showed you before with Rafael Belliard hitting eighth in the lineup, he's basically an automatic out before you get to the pitcher, which is really something that you really don't want. I had to bring the Braves score down just a little bit. I didn't hit him over the head. I gave him a 4 out of 5 for righty lefty mix and depth in the lineup. So overall, the 1996 Braves offense grades out very well at a 4 out of 5. Now let's take a look at the defense. You are very solid up the middle with Belliard and Lemke. Neither one of them are ones, so I couldn't give them a perfect score of a 5 out of 5, but I did give them a 4.5 out of 5. Now let's look at the outfield defense. The outfield, when you look at it left to right, um, based on the team tendencies and how much guys played during the year, it was left to right, Klesko, Grissom, and Dye. And you could see you're carrying a four in left field. You have an absolute lockdown center fielder, and you have a pretty good right fielder whose E rating is going to um, come up later to hurt the team in that category. But as far as just sheer outfield defense goes, I gave the Braves a 3.5 out of 5. And I know Marquise Grissom is completely locked down in center field, but I don't like the four in left. And Jermaine Dye, I know he's a two, but a pretty high E rating. That could create some problems. So again, I settled on a 3.5 out of 5 for the 1996 Braves outfield. As far as the overall E ratings, this is infield, outfield, taking everything into account. You are very solid up the middle, as I showed you before with Lemke and Belliard. You're very solid at third with Chipper Jones. Fred McGriff is at best, I would call him just okay at first base. You know, again, too high of an E rating right there for first base. And I don't like the E rating in right field when Jermaine Dye is out there. However, looking at it, the way I kind of tilt these E rating scores is I put a very heavy emphasis on second base, shortstop, center field. And then I factor in the E ratings at third base and first base a lot because like anyone who's ever played Strat-O-Matic would know, the splits at third base and first base are very high. So more often than not, you are rolling for a error on the defensive chart for third base and first base. So my overall E rating score for the 1996 Braves came out at a 4 out of 5. So their overall defensive score once again came in at a very solid 4 out of 5. So far so good for the 1996 Atlanta Braves. Now let's look at the starting pitching, and you can probably tell before I even show you the numbers the way the starting pitching is going to grade out. But first, let me show you the ace Greg Maddux. You see his on base chances there when you roll his card. Those are excellent numbers out of an ace, and that was a very easy 5 out of 5 score as I grade the aces card. Now, let's take a look at the starting rotation depth where we're going to look at Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Denny Nagel. I'm going to show you all of their on base chances here versus lefties and versus righties. And you can see all of those numbers check out well above average. Even Denny Nagel, the number 4 starter. You come across a lot of Strat-O-Matic teams, even some teams that I've actually done videos on, where you don't see on base chances that low for an ace. And Denny Nagel was the number 4 starter in the 1996 Braves. So um, probably no big surprise. The Braves 1996 starting rotation, ace gets a perfect score of a 5 out of 5, and the depth gets a perfect score of a 5 out of 5. So the starting rotation grades out perfectly. Now let's take a look at the bullpen here, and this is where we ran into a little bit of a problem. When you examine Mark Wohler's card from 1996, you could see that his on base chances check out pretty solid. The number is a little bit high against right handed hitting, but the reason why I had to drag his score down a little bit is that I don't like it when relievers have a lot of power on their card. Like they have actual straight home runs that you could roll on their card, not even ballpark effect home runs, like real home runs. You just roll it and it's a home run. So I'm not particularly crazy about that out of my closer. Plus, he was only a one inning reliever. So I only gave Wohlers a score of a 3.5 out of 5. Now, as we look at the bullpen depth, this is actually where they grade out very well. as I show you Bilecki, Bourbon, and McMichael's numbers. And you can see all those numbers check out very good, especially Pedro Bourbon, who, um, very good against right-handed hitting. And if you need a lefty to get a left-handed batter out, I mean, those are tremendous numbers right there, 2 out of 33. So you could see all of their numbers check out well above average compared to other bullpens. So I had no problem giving the Braves bullpen depth a perfect score of a 5 out of 5. So their bullpen graded out at a 4.25 out of 5. So when we look at the 1996 Braves final score, as we add everything up, they grade out overall as a 4.3 out of 5, which is a tremendous score. It's not the highest score that I've given out. I believe that still belongs to the 1989 Oakland A's. I'll have to go back and double check. The one thing that I would say about the 1996 Braves, and this was the first time I actually ever really encountered this when I started doing these videos of team breakdowns. When they came out to a 4.3 out of 5, I was actually a little bit surprised because I frankly don't think this team is really that good. I mean, but the score is what it is. I've played many times with the 1996 Braves, and the best way I could describe this team is I feel like this team is a little bit disjointed. Um, the offense, you're very solid 1, 2, 3, 4 in the lineup. And then depending on how you want to work the lineup from there, things can really change depending on who you play. I don't like the fact that they have an automatic out in the 8 hole. And if you have to pinch hit for Belliard in a specific spot, then the depth defensively at shortstop is really going to hurt you. Like I remember playing one game where I pinch hit for Rafael Belliard, brought in Jeff Blauser, who, for some reason in 1996 he had a terrible grade for his defense, and he ended up hurting the Braves with his defense late in the game. And you know, uh, I'm not crazy about the closer on this team. I showed you his numbers. Even though, like I said before, his on base chances are not great, he's still very hittable. You could do some damage off of him. Obviously, the starting pitching is tremendous, top notch on the 1996 Braves. But again, like I said before, I was a little surprised that the 1996 Braves scored that high. But that's just me trying to look at these cards without a biased eye or anything like that, and just really examine the cards the best way that I know how. So that's how I grade out the 1996 Atlanta Braves, 4.3 out of 5, which is an excellent, excellent score. So that's my video on the 1996 Braves Strat-O-Matic team breakdown. My next video will be on the 1997 World Series champion Florida Marlins. Have a good day, everyone.